Good evening, everyone. Everybody hear me okay, I guess? So we will be in the book of Psalms here shortly. So I sat down with Mike and Chad not too long ago, and we started lining out this class for the next, 6 months or so. And I took Psalms right off the bat. And that's a lot. 150 chapters. I got about 4 class periods. And, honestly, if I'd have had my choice, I'd have went with Proverbs. Proverbs is one of my favorite books. I've made that known to a lot of you over time. But sometimes I think the Lord knows what He's doing when I ended up with Psalms, because it makes you study. Maybe study areas that you have not spent a lot of time in. And sometimes, years ago, when I feel like this is really bothering me. How about now, maybe? Y'all tell me. Still hear it a little bit. I can get loud. I really don't need it, but I know the people online may need it. I really don't know what to do. Is that all right? Okay, let's try it like this for a little bit. So, sometimes if you're a teacher and you're given a list of topics to go through, sometimes it's quite a challenge to take one that you don't know a lot about. And I kind of felt this way going through Psalms early on, trying to learn and read about it and see what it's all about. Is it still doing it? What do I need to do? We got to figure it out quick because I got 150 chapters to get through. So I guess I can start this part. So Psalms, kind of an overview. The overview, what I'm going to talk about is that there's no way, obviously, you can cover it all. And Mike told me that beforehand. You're kind of doing like he does sometimes when he covers a book with us. We go through certain points, and what I have found out, even after tonight, after I teach these next 4 classes over this book, I feel like somebody else can come in and teach 4 more classes and not touch anything I've touched. I just feel like that's kind of part of it. I think it's in some ways the beauty of the Bible. It reminds me of the NCAA basketball tournament. It's one of my favorite events in all the year is March Madness, because they have 64 teams that compete for a championship, and if you were to play it over again in April, I think somebody else would win it, and some of y'all know what I'm talking about, and I kind of feel like this way with Psalms. So let's get through an overview today, and let's go through some things, and there may be times where you look up and think, well, that's not right. Well, there's no pride here. Raise your hand and speak up, because I just want to say things correctly. If I'm incorrect on something, I want you to share it with me. It's not going to bother me one bit. If I say something that's out of an order or anything of that nature, please let's discuss it together. So I'd always heard that King David wrote Psalms, and the study I have found is that multiple people wrote Psalms. Okay, so King David, 70 or 80 of them in there, depending. Moses had a part in Psalms. Solomon. And these are not really things that I have thought about in my lifetime, so it was already new to me. Asaph, which is a musician, wrote some. The sons of Korah, which is a family of musicians, wrote some. A person named Ethan wrote one. And a person named Heman which I referred to as He-Man, if y'all were growing up when I grew up. He-Man was he wrote Psalm 88. So that already right off the bat, I learned something new that, I just had been not thinking about over the years. So I'm sitting here with Psalms, and I've got one version of the Bible, and I've got another version of the Bible. I have a commentary. I have a page of notes. I have a computer, and I'm thinking, this is Mike Williams' life right here. That went through my mind. But anyway, it's been fun digging, and some things I want to read to you about it that I found. I was reading one website that had amazing facts about Psalms, and I'm not going to read them all. I just want to read the preface of that article. I just think this was neat. It says, want to be blessed, want your prayers answered, read the book of Psalms. Know it, pray it, believe it. The book of Psalms is one of, if not the richest compilation of powerful prayers, hymns, and poems, including every human emotion possible: anger, frustration, fear, loneliness, sadness, to bliss, joy, elation, wonder, gratitude, and everything in between. This is perhaps why the Psalms, more than any other book of the Bible, is believed to be the most widely read and most profoundly cherished of all other books. Not only can we relate, but it is powerful. That rain? I better keep reading that. So, some of the notes I have found before we actually dive into some of the text. The Psalms is a model of the full spectrum of human emotion and directed toward God. So it already made me think, like, when I'm directing to God, what is my emotions like? What are my prayers? What am I feeling at the time? So it already had me pondering, thinking about that. And what do other people think? And does what's going on around me affect my emotion during that prayer? So I thought that was pretty good food for thought. Express joy, grief, and anger while trusting in God's unwavering love, faithfulness, and sovereignty. So we're going to see a lot of that. We're going to see a lot of joy. We're going to see grief. We're going to see anger. But all the while that if we deal with those things in today's time, which we do go through those things, we need to be very loving as God is example. We need to be faithful to Him as He is to us, and we of course need to recognize His sovereignty, which basically means He is the ruler, overall. I read where the Psalms kind of provide, or it's kind of like a deep, honest relationship with God. And this part really got me thinking, like, when I have a very deep relationship with somebody, sometimes how does that change the way I talk to them, the way I plead with them? When you're very close to somebody, it just seems like sometimes it can change, maybe because they understand you a little bit more. Maybe that's why, but it got me thinking about my relationship with God and, where it's at and where it should be and things of that nature. Psalms encouraging individuals to process their feelings with Him and to praise Him regardless of their circumstances. I think the most common thing that is mentioned in a church building pertaining to that sentence would be the fact that, when we really need God, we're really praying. But sometimes when we feel like things are going good, sometimes our prayer life may suffer. And we don't want to be that type of person. That's not what we want to be as a Christian. We want to have that open line of communication to God all the time. Even if things are going good, then we have our prayers should be full of thanksgiving. New Testament talks about coming to Him with an attitude of thanksgiving. It needs to be full of that. So we need to understand, I guess, that all things pass, the good, the bad, the highs, the lows. It's going to happen. But we need our relationship with God to stay unwavering in everything that we do. I want to continue a little bit more if you'll stay with me here. You know, the language to express these emotions sometimes, it comes with honesty and talking to God. It comes with sorrow. Sometimes it comes with anger. Sometimes it comes with doubt. Sometimes with grief. We're going to read about that probably the next 4 class periods or however long I'm up here teaching. We're going to read about God's character, His faithfulness, His mercy. My goodness, His mercy. I mean, it's really, really plentiful in the Bible. His power and His love for people. You know, His sovereignty and His love for people are going to be very important. We're going to read a lot about worshiping and praising, you know, singing, of course, because that's what we've tied Psalms with, it seems like, most of the time growing up. You know, confession, celebrating the goodness that God has within Him. You read about a lot of lament, however you want to say it, the struggling, the suffering. You know, sometimes people in the Bible, they're pouring out their pain to God, and maybe you've been there. I know I've been there before. You know, when you're pouring it out and you don't know really how. You don't know how to share that with the Lord because, like, I don't know, and this is just Jamie talking now. I know there's been times younger in my life that I had things I wanted to say, but like I felt like I was on eggshells. I didn't want to say the wrong thing in a prayer for sure. You know, and not in a belittling way or not in a way that makes you think that I'm on the same plane of God at all, but just, you know, maybe I didn't want to mess up or make things worse than they already are. So there's a lot to learn about, when you're dealing with suffering that the Psalms talks about. And, you know, through all of that, you have trust that He hears. You have trust that God is going to make things okay. You have trust that in His timing. David kind of touched on this a little bit when he talked about our prayer life the other night, having the trust and feeling like that you're going to get past that time. Because we've all been in moments, whether it was last week or 10 years ago, we've all been in moments that we didn't know how we were going to get to the next day. And now whatever was going on at the time, we don't even think about it now. You know, we were able to get through it. So that's something that I thought was worth talking. You got to know that God is with you. God, He's a refuge, and you're going to read about that a lot. Read about how God is our refuge. He is our safe place, and we have to recognize that, and we have to hold on to that. I have here that I wrote down, there's life lessons in these Psalms that are similar to the Proverbs. There's a lot of life lessons that I was able to pull out right off the bat that I could apply to my life that I think that could help me out. I think the Psalms, and these last few were just some that I come up with on my own, but I think Psalms, you have ways that we are supposed to think, and how we're supposed to act, and how we're supposed to carry ourselves, regardless of highs and lows, and whatever Satan has thrown at our way, because he is trying to tempt you and trying to bring you down. So everything I just talked about, I have written on a page that I have titled Page 1. So when we're reading some of this stuff from the text, I'm going to say, remember page 1, because everything that we have talked about is on that page. And you know what? I think even on the 4th class, regardless if we're in chapter 141 or whatever, I think we're going to talk about something from page 1, the collection of things that I have found about the Psalms. So Psalms chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. Said, "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the path of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in His law he meditates day and night." So, you know, things that stick out to me right off the bat is His delight. You know, we're here to please God. We are to, if we want to be blessed people, this telling us. You know, when we read the blesseds, we always think about what the Sermon on the Mount, rightfully so, but it's talking about here a lot in Psalms. And as I'm continuing to learn about Psalms, we're going to learn that Jesus, you know, had went back to the Psalms as well. But anyway, um, meditate. And in his law, he meditates day and night. And right off the bat, I was asking myself, I got 2 verses in before I started studying Psalms, before I started questioning myself, do I spend time meditating, thinking, praying on it all the time? If you really have a deep relationship with someone, you're really in constant contact. You really are. You're in constant contact. It just doesn't end. You're in constant contact, and sometimes you know the answer before you ask, per se. Sometimes if we go to God sometimes with our troubles, or I feel like we're waiting maybe perhaps for God to act on it, but we know right off the bat probably what our answer is going to be if we have any knowledge of the Bible. I have a reference for that, but I think it's a little too early, so we'll come back to that here in a little bit. Verse 5 says, "Therefore the ungodly shall not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the congregation of the righteous." So the ungodly shall not stand, and, I always like to flip things. It's very easy to flip them. There are people in this world that are ungodly. They choose to be that way. You have a choice, I mean, you don't, but you do. Like, if you want to go to heaven, you don't really have a choice. You need to be godly. But at the same time, on this world, it's free will. You have a choice to be godly or ungodly, and it's telling us the direct result of it. We live in a world today where God is not mentioned, or if you do something correct, you'll get made fun of, or if you do the right thing, sometimes that is seen as unpopular, and a lot of times it is. But it is our job, I guess, to make it popular, to do the right thing. Verse 6 kind of sums it all up there in the beginning. It says, "For the Lord knows the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish." The Lord knows the way. Already from, quote, page 1 of my notes, we're reading about God's character right off the bat and reading about his faithfulness. I mean, if we're faithful to him in the end of time, we're going to be taken care of. There are going to be tough moments here. There are going to be tough times. That is going to happen. You're going to read through that in this book. Many books. That lesson could be taught in many books, but it's going to happen. It's really the old phrase, not how you handle it, not what happened to you, but how you handle it, and it's how we handle so many things. And as I've studied Psalms and meditated on it and thought about it, I think it goes back to that relationship that we're talking about with God. So, if I had an end result goal in teaching this class over Psalms, from what little bit I know already, it would be that at the end of it, that our relationship is deeper. It is deeper with God, regardless of what emotions you are feeling, because he knows you and he wants you to come to him. He wants that. So, Psalms chapter 3 and verse 2, it says, I'll just read all of it. Starting in verse 1, it says, "Lord, how they have increased who troubled me. Many are they who rise up against me, and many are they who say of me, there is no help for him in God." And when that went through my mind, I just thought, wow, when people have said that, about David, this story has to deal with his son, Absalom. Is that his son or stepson? Son, and it's because he raped, Okay, he plotted to kill because one of them had raped his sister. Okay, I told y'all, I don't know. But anyway, so he's fleeing, and he's saying these things, and he's saying that people have said there is no help for him in God. Now, the first thing that went through my mind, right or wrong, whether it makes a valid point or not, that's a pretty tough comment right there for somebody to make. Basically, it sounds like to me, he says, "Many are they who say of me, there is no help for him in God," meaning that God's not going to do anything for that person. And maybe I misinterpreted that, but I don't know. I've seen God take a lot of people in the Bible that have done some things that good come out of it. So I guess the lesson that I wanted to, or a point I wanted to make is we have to be careful how we title people or label people, because you really don't know what has planned. I imagine the people standing around when Stephen was there probably didn't think Saul was going to have much of a future, and you know how that story ended up when he became Paul and became one of the best missionaries ever. So, but anyway, it goes on to say, he said, "But you, O Lord, are a shield for me, my glory and the one who lifts up my head. I cried to the Lord with my voice, and he heard me from his holy hill. I lay down and slept, and I awoke, for the Lord sustained me. I will not be afraid of 10,000 of people who have set themselves against me all around." So we're reading that. That's a very, it's a famous verse. You hear some, things we read about earlier, lament. He's crying here a little bit. I think he's feeling some grief if he's being chased. But there's also that trust there. He has that trust that he knows that the Lord is a shield. And I haven't been there that magnitude to where somebody's after me, but I have had hard times in my life, and the Lord always prevails. The Lord always makes things better. Now, it may be his time, of course, but when you have that hope in the Lord, when you have that, you feel like, I don't know how to explain it. You feel like it's going to get better. I don't know how. I mean, there's a million things that a lot of people are going through. I don't know how I would handle it. But at the same time, when you have the Lord and you're talking in terms of eternity, the end result is going to be positive. It's going to be, regardless of all the evil things you hear in the world today, whether it's shootings or deaths or suicides or cancers or anything like that. So I feel like that, when God is your refuge and that's your place to go, there is no better place. Even if it's prayer, even if it's your relationship, there is no better place. There is no bunker in the mountain. There is no house safer. There's nowhere safer really in the world to be than to be, have God as your refuge. So this is new for me. I've never done a lesson on Psalms. Does anybody have a question, or does anybody want to correct me on something, or does anybody have anything to say? Just want to cover any of that, okay? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and emotions, and I know I've had prayers before that I don't know if I scared myself, but let me see. How do I want to say this? Maybe I don't want to say it. If you're dealing with stuff and it's got you, it's taken over you, whether it be physical, mental, work related, anything, and maybe it's hindering you from being the Christian that you can be. That's what I'm trying to say. Anything. Maybe in your prayers, asking the Lord, can you help me because I'm not being the Christian that I can be. And when that train of thought crossed my mind one time, I felt like it was too bold, right? I felt like, because God's almighty, I'm ready to bow down. How dare me say, if you'll fix me, I can do better. So I'm just trying to bring out some points from, I guess, Scurry Rosser that there's sometimes people don't want to say, but it's kind of like basketball games sometimes. I remember one time after a game, I went to the store the next morning. The lady said, we got beat pretty good. The lady said, what happened last night? And I said, they're better than we are. I mean, I'm not a miracle worker. What do you mean what happened? They're better. That's what happened. They're better. And people don't always like to hear that. But, and I kind of felt that way with that prayer. Like, on the nice side, it was, I need your help because I'm not being. But I think emotionally sometimes I was like, you got to help me. I'm not being, I don't know. Came off bold, I guess. I think one of Patton's prayers during the war was, Lord, whose side are you on? And I don't know what he was dealing with at the time, and I don't want to know what he was dealing with. I don't want to be out marching across Germany in the dark and the cold and people after me every which way. I don't want to know what that feels like. I don't know what he feels like, but I don't know. I think emotions can come into prayer. I think we're going to see it and hear. I do think the Lord knows your heart. I don't think it gives us the okay to be a smart aleck, David.
It goes back to what you started with in the book of Psalms. Lots of preachers and teachers and just members of the church go to Psalms when they're going through a lot of the wilderness tests and trials and tribulations, trials and tribulations. They go to the book of Psalms because of the refuge and things that he's mentioned in there. And what it does eventually, even when your spirit is broken, eventually to teach you how to just trust in God with everything.
I totally agree. It does. It gives you a sense of peace, maybe. If that's putting it in the right terminology, it gives you a sense of peace. And, that scripture right there is very popular. A lot of people have that underlined. I believe we've seen that on T-shirts before, so that's very popular there in verse 3. So, verse 4, chapter 4, it's like it all comes full circle right here. I just want to go ahead and read some of it. Let me just read. It says, hear me when I call, O God of my righteousness. You have relieved me in my distress. Have mercy on me and hear my prayer. How long, O you sons of men, will you turn my glory to shame? How long will you love worthlessness and seek falsehood? But know that the Lord has set him apart for himself, him who is godly. The Lord will hear when I call to him. Be angry and do not sin. Meditate with your heart on your bed and be still. Offer the sacrifices of righteousness. Let me just go ahead and finish this. And put your trust in the Lord. There are many who say, who will show us any good? Lord, lift up the light of your countenance upon us. And you have put the gladness in my heart more than in the season, than their grain and wine increased. I will both lie down in peace and sleep. For you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. Well, I think a lot of this finishes up what David was talking about. I think the beginning of that, I don't know if bold's the word. Maybe I'm looking too deep into it. Maybe it's just normal talk. I'm not one to say, oh God, hear me when I call. I'm like, thank you for listening to me, but it says he relieved him in his distress, had mercy, saying, have mercy on me. A lot of these give a different language that maybe I felt like wasn't customary, maybe in our time. I don't know. Like I said, the boldness that we have read and will read from some of the people, I think is very interesting. A deep, honest relationship with God. We talked about that earlier, and I think by reading this, I think you can see that. I think you can see a deep, honest relationship because he knows, the Lord knows of the gladness in his heart. I think you see honesty. I think you see sovereignty. You see trust and rest. How about little phrases like meditate within your heart? And then be still. Be still. Be still is two very simple words in the English language, but a whole lot can happen when you're being still. What can happen when you're being still? What can happen? Like, first of all, you can think when you're still. You can think. You can recollect your relationship within God. You have a chance for your brain to operate a better understanding of what is in your heart or what is supposed to be in your heart at that time. I think being still, meditating, being quiet, listening. I think these are all words that we will see that carry so much, because and that's so important. Your relationship with God, your relationship with one another. If people follow those, that of being still and listening and meditating, there's going to be a whole lot less arguments in the world, a whole lot less drama, a whole lot less, those kind of interactions. There are some people that they're difficult sometimes to have a conversation with because they don't be still. They don't meditate on perhaps what you have said. And maybe you've been there. I know I've been there. When somebody's talking, what am I doing? I'm loading my mind for what I'm going to say back. I'm not listening. Sometimes people want you just to listen. People sometimes just want you there, or your presence. Mike talked about that in a lesson not too long ago about, the answer is, if somebody needs you, the answer is, to be there. Whether you help or not, just you being there. Your presence just being, even if it is still, quiet, it's very, very important. So, so many that talk, where we are, I don't know, I don't want to bring up this topic and go down this road. We've been accused before of not following the Old Testament. You've probably heard that before, and often I understand that we don't pay our taxes overseas. I understand all that stuff, but so much of the Old Testament, this is what Jesus preached to us, isn't that right? And I read little verses like this. It says, "Be angry and do not sin." Have you ever read that in the New Testament? Of course you have. And I don't know, the correlation here, God's plan with the Bible, it's perfect. It's there for us all to follow, and I'm just going to continue on because I could take off in a different direction. Psalms chapter 5, verses 1 through 3. Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my meditation. Give heed to the voice of my cry, my King and my God. For to you I will pray. My voice you shall hear in the morning, O Lord. In the morning I will direct it to you, and I will look up. So, I think the praise comes in here. We talk about, his meditation's a big part of his life. Is it a big part of our lives? Is meditation beyond just prayer? Does it go beyond prayer? And that's kind of a question. Yeah, I think so. Sometimes I've caught myself thanking God for everything up to this point, right? I have more to ask for, I guess, per se, but, like he has made so many good things happen in my life that I don't want to say, "We do this with me, Lord," and then he does it for me and then just sweep it under the rug like it was no big deal. Like, no, it was a big deal. It really helped me. I don't know if it's only me that has felt like that before, but just having the meditation to thinking about him and praising him, all the days, all the time, it just like never stops. Now in the cell phone age, perhaps you and your spouse, you get up in the morning, you get to work, and maybe you've texted 2 or 3 times before lunch, and what are you doing, and where are they in, and then before the day's out, and then when you get home, and then I mean that's I'm not saying that's bad in any way, but that's what it's like to have a relationship with somebody. And I'm gonna make up a bad example. If we get up in the morning and don't do anything, and then we go through the day and eat our meals, and then come home after a hard day's work, mow the yard, and then get in there and say a little prayer before you go to sleep. I just think it could be better. I think it could be better, your relationship with the Lord. Is that making sense? And I say that because I have fell victim to that before. I think if you really want to have a deep relationship, you're not doing it to be seen, but I think it needs to be seen. I think it needs to be seen so that people can see see Jesus Christ in you. If they see that in you, then it makes it can make an impression, because there's so many people that have a lifestyle that has nothing centered around biblical things whatsoever. But I'm just going to put this one in scurry language. They're missing out. They're missing out. And that's our job to spread it, but they're missing out. Their hard times are still going to be hard, but when you have an end result that's eternity, when you have God that's on your side, when you have Jesus and the Holy Spirit, what's the word I'm looking for? Interceding for us, to know that you have somebody working on your behalf. That's very interesting. I passed up one happened. In chapter 2 of Psalms, God actually laughs. Y'all aware of that? Like, he actually laughs. And I read one commentary that made this point, and I got 5 minutes left. I've been 4 chapters anyway. I read one commentary that made the point. Yeah, God laughed because people were kind of plotting against him, or why, or questioning, or whatever. Just because he laughed doesn't mean he stopped working. Okay? Like, you may be in a situation where you laugh at somebody and walk off. Okay? That's not God. He is still full of mercy. He is still full of love. He just because he has a sense of humor in that little passage, he is still at work. Don't think that he's not working for you. Don't think that. So I just remembered that from commentary I wanted to share. Moving on into Psalms, chapter 5, let's go to 11 and 12. It said, "Let all those rejoice who put their trust in you. Let them ever shout for joy because you defend them. Let those also who love your name be joyful in you. For you, O Lord, will bless the righteous. With favor you will surround him with a shield." I want all those things. I want to be surrounded by a shield. I want to be surrounded by God's shield. That's what I want. I want that. There's nothing wrong with looking at something and say you want that. Okay, well, what do you got to do to get it? What do you got to do to be that? What do you have to do, Do you have that life to where you're rejoicing constantly? You have the trust. You know that God trusts in you. You know that. You love his name. You're joyful. He blesses the righteous. You know that. You have to believe that, and you believe it even when you're not going through bad times. When you're having a bad time, you can't say, "Well, I thought you were going to bless me." It doesn't work like that. You got to have an understanding of the Bible and what some of the people in the Bible went through, because Satan is evil, and evil things are going to come at you. But you're regardless of what Satan does, you're not stepping away from God. You're not stepping away from that. I don't know. I think we say that in our prayers. I don't care what happens. All right, Mike, correct me. It's not Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Help me out. Okay, those 3. went brain dead for a second. What did they say? Even if he doesn't save us, I'm not bowing down to you. Even I don't care what Satan does. I don't care. I'm not giving in to him. Glory to God in everything. Well, that one gave me chills. Glory to God in everything. Not bowing down, just not doing it. You have the Lord on your side, and I'm serious about it. I think that's what we need to be. I think this pours out from this book into us. The examples that I've seen already. I think it's just so much there for us to see. Chapter 6, I'm just about out of time. It's talking about, I think we need to trust and talk to God and believe. The New Testament talks about that. Believe that he will answer. Believe that even though it's on his time. Psalms chapter 7 and verse 11 reads, "God is a just judge, and God is angry with the wicked every day. I do want you to read that. You know, we have all talked about in here. I don't think God is a God that's being a gotcha God. I caught you. I got you in this. I got you in that. He is wanting to fill your life full of blessings. And judge is a bad word in the society today. Nobody wants to be judged or whatever. But what I want to say is exactly what the text says. He's a just judge. He's not mean. He's not bad. He's just. Like, he's laid it out here for us what to do. He gave his son for us. I'm not that tells us right there he's not mean, right? I don't know how many of us would be willing to do that. So he is just. Now, he is angry with the wicked, you know, and I know we don't have wicked people in here, but they're out there, unfortunately, a dime a dozen. And we have to be on guard. We have to guard our heart. We're going to talk about some of that later on. That God is a judge, that's still a very powerful statement that I think. You know, it talks about, let me see. Let's wait on that part. Let's go to Psalms chapter 8. Let's move forward. I'm just about out of time. Yeah, go ahead.
A man after God's own heart.
Correct.
There's things that David says that I'm scared to say. You know, in chapter 7 and verse 8, that he says, "The Lord judges the people. Judge me, O Lord, according to my righteousness, and
Yeah.
according to the integrity that is in me."
Yeah.
I'm scared to say that.
Well, that's where
I want mercy.
that page 1 talks about bold. There's some bold statements, you know, and what I did have written also on 7, he says, God is with the wicked every day. Everybody wonders, God does things on his time. Well, in this instance, let's talk about time. How often is he angry with the wicked? Every day, you know, and so that's something I thought was worth mentioning also. I'm just about out of time. I've joked about it being 150 chapters. I know I have went through the first few, and I have learned a little bit by watching Mike go through a book, but I felt like it was important to go through the beginning, maybe to set the tone of what it's going to be like in the passages or stories or psalms that we do pick out, the remaining 3 classes. I still want them all to go back to, you know, this person's relationship with God, our relationship with God. That's how we improve. I want it to be encouraging in us to process our feelings in talking to God. I want it to be encouraging to do that. I want us to recognize God's sovereignty, to recognize all those things, and you know, everything that's really mentioned on page 1. Maybe I should have projected that, but anybody got any questions? Well, yeah. 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 Sure.
Same thing, yeah.
Sure,
So
same thing.
he understands.
No.
He understands.
Right. Anybody else? All right, it's 8:03, so my apologies. So you are dismissed. Thank you. No, we're not. And I knew I would feel this way when I was over. Like, I mean, but I feel like I've just scratched the surface, but I feel like it's already helped me a ton.